And I am live. I am joined by the ever wonderful Witticism TV. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Good to talk with you.
Good, excellent. And I was recommended to you by one of my great Twitter followers. He said many great things about you. He said you're very intellectual. So
Oh, awesome. Anything to inflate my ego, I'm down for that.
yes, we're all inflating the ego of our friends here. But so if you could just kind of introduce your audience, what is your main thing you do on your channel? What is the main thing you're about that you focus on? What would you say you're about?
I think my channel's kind of like a documentary. Like you can go back to my first videos and they're kind of different than the videos are right now. It's kind of like a timeline of me getting more and more based and realizing more and more lies and seeing more and more of what is true and what is not. And I try to do it in a way that's not totally crazy or insane, but in a way that makes sense to other people. Because I feel like some of these messages that we have can seem really insane. You can really seem like the homeless guy on the corner with a sign that says the world is ending. But these things are the truth. You just have to know how to say them in an elegant way and in a way that makes you not seem crazy. So that's kind of my goal.
Yeah, I think that is important. Remaining optical, as the Zoomers like to say. Having good optics is very important, especially when talking to normicons who are not used to this lexicon and are programmed to believe in boomer truth. So to try to get past that security net, you're going to have to use some different language. We cannot continue the mistakes of the previous movements of trying to hold on to language of mid-century Germans, mid-century Italians, based people. Name whatever person you want. That isn't going to work. That's a failing strategy. And I feel like the one thing that we have learned is that if we continue down this path, it won't be good. So we need to learn from the mistakes of the other previous movements. It's clearly what they did not work ultimately. The circumstances that we face are much different. I feel like this is very important.
Well, I think it is important because I was a normicon until, boy, I don't even know, 2019, 2020. I think it was 2020. And I had seen the alt-right movement and I had seen, the fringe far right, and I was never really convinced of anything that they said. And I think it's because they kind of seemed crazy to me. Now, I know this is going to make some people irritated when I say this, but part of why I became more based or took the red pill or more red pills or overdosed on red pills was I was introduced. I wanted to start my YouTube channel and I was doing some Googling and YouTubing around, and I was going to do this whole series on Orwell. And I was going to make a direct comparison between things that were happening in that book and things that were happening in real life in 2020. Real basic stuff, nothing crazy. And YouTube recommended me this guy called Academic Agent. And I had never heard of him. I had never seen any of his stuff, but it recommended me a video called Another Way of Viewing Orwell. And it was super intellectual, super put together. He sounds very smart. That British accent is hard to beat. And it sounded more sensible than just screaming about the topic or being insane or, like no offense to Don the Pleb, but not saying AA stole his idea, but I'm just saying people like that don't do it for me or they don't seem like they have it together. Whereas AA really seemed competent in his argument. I think that's his best, most well produced video that he's made so far. And so I think if you are able to make content in a way that is appealing and engaging and approachable, and it's not a whole bunch of inside jokes um, and inside memes. I think it can make a difference. I mean, it made a difference on me, and watching that one video caused me to binge on his channel for like 4 or 5 months, and all I did was just watch AA content, and I watched all of his Boomer Truth regime videos and all of his economic videos, and I just like went crazy watching all that stuff. And all of it was so good and so well put together, you know. And if you read his book, The Populist Delusion, I mean, that is extremely well put together and extremely well written. So I think presentation matters.
Oh, it definitely does matter. The image you convey subconsciously conveys how seriously you will take a person, or convey their message. Obviously, if you're going to talk and scream like a random like bumpkin, nobody's going to really take you seriously, no matter how based the things you say or correct they are. It doesn't matter. There are just things you can't overcome with base talking points. So you do need those people, those intellectuals who can kind of explain these things to people and get them in to the movement. And then you can have those people, the more, we'll say, lower class types, who want to talk about our message and points in a more non-intellectual way. But they shouldn't be at the forefront, I would say. They have their space, but the intellectuals are important for getting people like you, the normicons, the people who aren't like used to these ideas, the people who are still buying into the narrative somewhat, but they're questioning. Like you say, they start to realize there's some cracks, and they're wondering why.
Yeah, well, making it more approachable doesn't mean, make it dumb or make it less truthful or anything. It just means shared in a way that makes total sense. I think that's kind of what A gets at when he's saying the sensible center. You have to present these ideas in a way um, that matters and seems rational.
Well, yeah, that seems relatable. It can help like convey the message that people like want to believe, but aren't allowed to because of the narrative that they adopt consciously or subconsciously. The thing called boomer truth, call it whatever you want, but it's something that we have to work with.
Yeah, some of the stuff you just have to step over. I love that Jonathan Bowden expression. You just have to step over it. It's so good. Some stuff you just have to explain just straightforwardly and without compromise, and sometimes you do have to be a little bit angry about it. So that's half the motivation for my videos. I see this stuff and I get so mad, and I think I have to make a video on this and show why these idiots are totally wrong. And that is a motivating factor. But that's my inner white guy that loves to do that.
Yeah, it's your inner chud, your inner red stater, as we like to say in the sphere. But I feel like we all had that moment that kind of realized the facade of democracy. Some of us much earlier than others, but I feel like your channel does a great job of kind of explaining this to people who kind of don't realize this yet. I feel like 2020 really woke a lot of people up. We were talking before, and you kind of mentioned this to me, that it really did wake you up as well to the absolute facade that we live in, the farce that it is in every single way. It definitely feels like a lot of that really was a major event, an epoch in a lot of people's journeys here.
Yes, well, there's so many foundational lies of American democracy that the whole thing is built on that just don't hold up anymore. They're just crumbling pillars that day by day we see that they're failing, and they're not holding up anything. I think Morgoth made a video about that. I forget the name of the video. It was about that guy's painting where with the elephants with the super skinny legs. I don't know if you watched that one or not, but That's kind of what democracy is. This very feeble thing that's built on lies and is kind of crumbling down.
Yeah, it's kind of very important to realize that, so you're not still clinging on to it like most of the chuds and Republican people are, the normicons who still think that we're just one election. If we just get DeSantis in there, if we just get Jim Jordan, if we just get what whoever elected to president, then finally we're going to have the reaction and stop progress. And as every election goes by, and we always move in one direction, I feel like that illusion is losing its grasp. Slowly but surely, it's losing its grasp.
Yeah, well, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And every election cycle, you get excited and you look at the candidates and you say, well, this person's saying this and that. And every single time we elect them, they go in office and just stab us right in the heart. It's not even stabbing us in the back anymore, really. It's full frontal. It's right in front of you. They're looking you right in the eyes and they just stab you right in the heart. And they don't care. And I don't know how you can continue to have the same enthusiasm about it. It's just unsustainable. You just can't do that to voters every single time. You can't say, "Oh, the Democrats are so bad. Oh, we need to get in there. We're going to change things." And then the very first thing you do when you get in there is vote for gay marriage and vote for red flag laws and
lower taxes.
Yeah, lower taxes, and it's just not what we need. It's not what we want. And anymore, the candidates aren't even as good as what I think they were. Part of me feels like that, and then part of me says, well, the zeitgeist is going a little more far right because people like Liz Cheney and Paul Ryan and Mitt Romney and Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham. These people can barely show their face in public because they're so hated. Because they're the ones who have betrayed us, really. The John McCain's, and the only reason I don't even know how these people still get elected. The only way they ever leave office is by dying, like McCain. That's the only way they ever leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah. You just see this with every Republican administration, House or Senate leader. It's we're going to finally change things, do something, and then the reality is more money for a certain country in the Middle East, more gay rights, and that's pretty much it. That's all you ever get from them. Or their wars don't have gay pride flags on the bombs they drop. So that's the real difference. I like that meme as well. I think that's actually kind of accurate as well.
Well, what's infuriating is every election cycle, we're always 2 years down the line from the last election or 4 years down the line, or, we can even look at longer timelines of quality of life and stuff. But, every election is always the most important election. And it's always the craziest, Flight 93 type election where we all have to go out and vote or we're all going to die. And every politician,
democracy will end.
Yeah, every politician, I hate these people for this, but they pick up, the language of their base, or more radical people, and they talk a good talk. And then when they get in there, they just completely flip. And I'm over that. I'm really done participating, and I'm done giving my vote to people who do that. It's infuriating because people really are suffering. It's such a joke. I remember when healthcare was this big, huge issue. Obamacare was this abortion of a bill that was rammed through in this crazy, they had to bring a freaking handicapped guy, they wheeled him in to do a vote last minute in the middle of the night to get Obamacare through. And it was this big, shady deal. And, Republicans tried to fight on that for like a little bit. And they always said, oh, we only have 1/2 or 1/3. And so, we fought and we got everybody in there that we could. And eventually we owned everything. And we had Trump and we had Paul Ryan and we had all this stuff. And what did they do? Was it ever? It was always when they were running. it's going to be, we are going to repeal Obamacare. And then when they got elected, it was, repeal and replace. And well, now it's really hard. You see, the replacing, that's really difficult. We can't just scrap the whole thing. That's unconscionable. We could never do that. We need to come up with a different solution. And so it just, they loitered around and never came up with anything. And then the whole movement died. And now healthcare is 10 times crappier than it was in 2010. And it's not even a talking point because everything has gotten worse, And so while healthcare is bad, immigration is bad, and the stupid war in Ukraine is bad, and trans issues is bad. Gas prices are bad. Like everything is affecting us in a way where it's like one distraction to another. And they use all these distractions like inflation. They use that as a talking point. And then they go in these 17 or 18 Republicans who voted for the omnibus bill. I mean, what were they thinking? All those politicians ran on lower spending and, we're going to reduce out of control, reckless spending that the Biden administration has. And then when they get elected, they just flip. It's insane to me. I'm over it. That's why I'm done with the voting.
Yeah, I think a lot of us got jaded from Donald Trump. The Donald really isn't the man he used to be in 2015. He was this great Pepe who was going to finally stop the Democrats and the left from destroying the country, bring back sanity to clown world, and big tech censorship, which was just starting to come in. And I thought that was the great grasp of that vision that maybe it could happen realistically with somebody who could actually wield the people in a productive way. But it just didn't work out. And he really became domesticated. And we're really seeing that with his 2024 campaign, where it's more gay rights, more vaccines, and less of the man that did exist in 2015. Just this sack, ballless guy now.
Yeah, it's infuriating. Like Trump will not back down for, Operation Speed Warp or whatever, Time Warp, Speed Warp, whatever that was. Like he defends that like it's the best thing he ever did, and I don't get it. And I know we have to be careful on what we say here, but it's baffling to me that he knows people don't like that, and yet he continues to double down on it.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say, but how much of his boomer mentality plays into this? Because the guy is old. I think that's a lot of a problem with our politicians. They're all like 80 or like a million years old, like Nancy, the dinosaur Pelosi, or Chuck Schumer, or Mitch McConnell. They're all 90.
Yeah, we're all ruled by octogenarians
who can't relate to the people which they govern at all. This is why we still have people in Congress who don't understand like how social media works. Like it's just insane. It's so archaic, and there's no new blood in there. And all the new blood that does get in there quickly gets corrupted. Oh, I need to write about this guy. The eye patch McCain. Absolute pathetic disgrace. A chode of a man. I don't know why people liked him at all.
Did you see that video where Did you see that video where he insulted that little girl?
I did not.
Oh man, it's brutal. She like questioned him about, you say you're a Christian and yet you did this, and he like laid into her crazy hard, and everyone in the room was kind of shocked at how much of a dick he was. And yeah, you have to go look that up after this. It's kind of wild. He really let his true colors show.
Yeah, and most of the people in there are like that. Or the new blood that does get in there gets corrupted by the lobbyist and special interest, which just buys them out. And I think we learned the expression that the people's house doesn't exist. It's really more of the lobbyist house, special interest, who actually pays for their salaries and new positions at Raytheon once they leave office, who they actually listen to.
Yeah, true. I think there's a lot of influence on politicians. Like you can see it in the Kevin McCarthy vote. A lot of the people that voted no for him, 15 times in a row, they eventually did vote yes. And if you look at their body language, I mean, it looks like they were threatened. I mean, it looks like they said, "Oh, it's a nice family you got. Sure would be a shame if something happened to little Susie. You better vote yes." And then, they waddle down the aisle, and I mean, their body language just looks like every bone in their body doesn't want to vote for him, but they're being forced to. Well, that's horrible. And so then you think, okay, well, those are the influences. We have the lobbyists, the donors, the outright threats. And then if you still get past that, I think like Trump, you have to face the deep state. That's like the final boss in defeating populism. And like I was telling you before the stream started, Trump, to me, he's like a domesticated turkey, because turkeys they're so domesticated through what we've done to them that they don't even know how to breed anymore. And every turkey that we eat has to be artificially inseminated. And that's what Trump is to me. He's been so domesticated, he has no idea how to even fight anymore. Things that used to be a natural instinct to him have been bred out of him through the domesticating process of the deep state and, I don't know, negative press. I don't think the negative press affects him as much, but I mean, he's been through the ringer. So if he's more hesitant, I think that's why. It's because he's just gun shy after what he's been through and what he's still going through, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think we kind of saw with him, like even when he was based, and when he tried to go after the deep state and like actually try to do things that were good, like pull out of Syria, like stop funding the endless wars in the Middle East while we have an invasion on our southern border. They just refused to do it and lied to him. Uh, and when he continued to press on it, the FBI raided his house and just banned him off Twitter. They just silenced him. They flexed their power over the Donald.
Yeah, it's just weird. He's really gone down the crapper. Like, you think there's, of all the things he could talk about or do, he comes out and he says, "Oh, big announcement. This is huge."
Oh yeah,
Huge with a Y. It's a huge announcement. Then it's NFTs that are so badly edited that you can still see the watermark on some of them. Like, they're so bad. And he made crazy money off that. They sold out instantly. Well, I'd like for him to talk more about, the Schedule F. Like, he wants to make, certain employees totally fireable. Well, I'm interested in hearing about that. He talks about how, the drug cartels, he wants to kill the leaders of the drug cartels. Well, I'm down for that. But I don't know why the NFTs have to be a part of that message. It's very strange.
yeah. There's this deep unseriousness with him now, and you kind of see that with his speeches, like his run, his low energy. It was. Did you see that tweet by Jeb Bush, who said his speech was low energy? Just the most ironic thing ever.
Yeah, you either die a hero or you live long enough for Jeb Bush to call you low energy.
I mean, that's something. that was something to watch.
He did pick it up a little bit, but at the start it was bizarre. A bizarre way to start a campaign.
No, just this tragic tale with the Donald and like the deep state. And I think it really kind of showed us like the power the deep state truly has. It really will flex its muscles and be competent when its power is threatened. It will go after you. It will imprison your followers and friends. It will persecute you, throw the Justice Department, the FBI, the CIA, the full force of its apparatus around you. So the actual dissent is severely punished.
Well, the deep state is crazy. I mean, I can't even believe that at one point people denied that it was even real. It's insane to me that, well, I mean, we all knew it was happening, right? We had to know that the deep state was manipulating social media and censoring people on that. I mean, the Twitter files have shown that they were doing it with Twitter, but we know they were doing it with Facebook. We know they do it with YouTube. We know that they do it on all these platforms. It's insane that conservatives are still out there talking about, that we need more limited government. And then when they talk about what more limited government is, it's really just like free market, and we stay out of people's lives. And, I'm not against gay marriage or anything. I just don't think that the state should be involved in gay marriage or tax rates or something. When in reality, the kind of crazy, tyrannical, overreaching government that we have right now is most embodied in the deep state, where you have the CIA and the FBI completely unchecked to do whatever they want, whenever they want it, however they want it. They don't stop school shooters. They don't ever go. I mean, they have a history of just insane behavior. I mean, we're talking about this.
Waco.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Waco, and we're talking about MK Ultra, and we're talking about just insane stuff. I mean, that's the worst kind of government overreach, and yet it's hardly ever talked about as something we need to completely clear out, but it needs to be.
Yeah, I think it's just a sign of the unseriousness of the Republican Party. I think, as you were mentioning before, the Republican Party has not updated their party platform since 2016. Something that they could hire an intern to do if they actually wanted to do something, energize some people on our side, their base, the chuds, so to speak. But they're not interested in that ultimately. Their role is not in winning. It's control opposition, going on committees when they take the House, when they're allowed their turn at the House, that they can barely win, and start committees where they bitch and moan at Zuckerberg, the director of the FBI, and they ultimately still are in power.
I know. We have, I don't know how many dozens and dozens of clips of Jim Jordan and Rand Paul
grilling
Fauci. I don't even understand what the point of it is. I mean, are we going to put him in jail, or is he going to retire, or is he going to go away, or is he going to be accountable? I mean, we need military tribunals and gulags set up for these people, not YouTube clips. But whatever. That's it's hard to accept. It's the biggest, hardest pill to swallow, that they're unserious people who don't actually want to lead. I mean, Aaron McIntyre was saying this on Twitter last week, that we just don't have an opposition party in the U.S. anymore. And it's very hard to accept that. For me, because I've always voted, and I've always thought it was important, and I always thought these people were on our sides. And I always thought, well, even, not the best Republican is still going to be better than a Democrat, but not anymore.
No, there really is a point. It is just the uniparty, ultimately. There is no difference, fundamentally. We are a one-party state. There is no two-story state anymore. There is only one narrative, ultimately, that is in charge of the power apparatus. And it is the progressive left. There is no right wing in this country. It's been outlawed for a long time, and is still suppressed, as we see in the current era. And so any party that GOP claims to be on the right is merely a facade to make people still believe that a pressure release valve is what they do, incompetently, but that's all they serve, is just a pressure release valve for our side.
Yeah, you're right. It has just been totally outlawed. It made me think of the latest Batman that came out.
Oh yeah, pregnant Joker. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me think here. In the movie, he's going up against I guess it's the Riddler, whoever the guy was that was in prison. You know what I'm talking about?
What movie?
The latest Batman movie.
I haven't watched it. I don't know.
Well, anyways, the guy, the Batman, is that it? The one with Robert Patterson and Paul Dano, yeah, the Riddler. And part of the Riddler's big scheme, basically in this movie, the Riddler is an incel who, you know, he streams on this magical site that's basically just allows Fed posting. Like all these guys are arming themselves and basically
Boogaloo
assembling a
Boys.
yeah, assembling a militia of people, and then they go and they they're sharing the gear that they buy, and and he's sharing his plans diabolically through this stream, and it was really like they were trying to make streamers like villains in this movie. But I thought, that would be awesome, but it's been totally outlawed. I mean, there is no app like that. I mean, like what? We're going on Twitch or YouTube Live and we're going to talk about the gear that we're going to use. Like, no. Been totally outlawed.
No, the absolute cultural monopoly is so total that even their version of us is like this Fed version of us too. We're so absolutely controlled by one side that we're such a one party state that the version of us is the Fed vision of us, where we're like, or what they want us to be like, at the fringes, basically.
Well, the government has a problem, or the system as a whole has a problem because, in Orwell's 1984, Emmanuel Goldstein, they always hate on him every day. 2 minutes hate. It's always a thing. People hate this guy. He's the most hated. It's illegal to love him. And yet every day there's always some new believer that has to get arrested for embracing the ideas. And that's kind of what America's going through right now. After 5 years of the most negative press against Trump of any human being alive, I mean, really. I mean, they have called him every name. They have used every joke. They've used every negative adjective. They have put more pressure on this dude and more pressure on you for thinking he's okay than anyone else in your whole life. And yet, in 2020, he gets 12 million more votes. I mean, that's a problem for them that they just can't account for. No matter how bad their messaging is or how negative it is, there's always going to be people that go, I wonder if there's something to that whole fascism thing, or I wonder what was going on in Germany around that time. There's always going to be people that are curious and see what's going on. That's a huge problem for the system.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think kind of their solution is just replacement, and like getting white women to vote for them until their replacement is enough, essentially. But until that point, just persecution and silencing their thought leaders. And we're seeing this more even the normicons now. The censorship is being extended now to absolute outlaw of any right wing. If you want to know what the future of the Republican Party is, go look at the UK. The Tories and Labour. There's zero difference between them. That's the future.
Yeah, well, and these days, you can type in the conservative case for, insert degenerate thing here, and you'll find something. I mean, Yeah, the parties, they really don't have very many differences between them. I mean, you have David French out there saying that, drag queen story time is a blessing of liberty. Well, all right. You lost me there, bud.
I think he lost a lot of things, including his balls a long time ago.
True.
That's what happens when you become a shill for the establishment. You give up your balls, you give up anything, integrity, any principles, actual principles, not the gay version what they hold, and you become this ballless, sackless mouthpiece, essentially,
Well,
if you
this
want to
is
maintain your position in the order.
well, this is something I realized. This was something that was a big. Um, it helped me see things for what it is. Um, if you believe in what the system is telling you, if you believe in the lies that are propagated, the foundational lies, then you are inevitably going to end up with egg on your face because these things are just wrong. And so reality is just going to smack you straight across the face and you're going to look like an idiot. Like somebody like Mike Pence, if you go listen to any of his speeches, he looks like an idiot. I mean, he's just defending. He'll go out and defend the FBI. Now he knows everything about the FBI. He's out there defending it. Well, that makes him an idiot. If you're still defending the pillars of what our country was built on, which are all corrupt, you're going to look like an ass at the end of it. And it's a real. It motivated me to just abandon all that. Because I don't want to look like an idiot. And I just want to believe in what's true. As far as I could tell, the FBI is basically a weapon that they use to sick on people. And to say otherwise makes me look like an idiot the next time that they go raid somebody's house. That makes sense?
Yeah, definitely. Or they do things far worse, like finders keepers, Jeffrey Epstein. We've never seen any of that evidence ever again. And they all covered it up. They're all involved in it. They're deeply involved with it.
True. Well, you can even say like, oh, well, one of our foundational, truths is that we have a justice system that works. All right. Well, who was Ghislaine Maxwell selling child prostitutes to? No one, apparently. We don't have a list. We never go after a list. We don't look into it. You get $600 in your Venmo account, they'll go after you. They'll find they know exactly all that. But who you were trading children with, we're not going to get into that. It's kind of awkward and complicated.
That's not important enough. This chud in Oklahoma posted on 4chan. That's more of a threat, and the the forces of the FBI must be involved on that. He could be a domestic terrorist, essentially. And the true colors are just open now. They're just a tool, an absolute force of the state. That's all they serve. They're a weapon of the deep state. Any sense of that they could solve crimes is evaporated, at least amongst our side.
One thing I had thought is we really don't need political commentary anymore. I mean, we really don't need we don't need talking heads on Sunday shows to explain, the deeper meanings of whatever some policy is. I mean, everything, like you said, everything is just out there in the open. I mean, there's no interpretation needed. It's as blatant as it could be. We're beyond the pale of hiding any of this stuff. It makes it easy to pick a side. This is why I'm like, how are you going to say you're an independent or you can't even choose? You can't choose. You're battling between the candidates. It's not, to me, it's not an issue of left versus right. It's just an issue of right versus wrong. Like what is right? Is this evil? I mean, there's some of this stuff is just plain evil, and there's no getting around that. Oh, I'm not going for that. Dread Time Story Hour, where they have they're dressed up like Baphomet, and they're they have these ridiculous names, and they're showing the back of their balls in front of kids. All right, well, that's evil, and I don't want to see that, and I'm not siding with that. I don't need
Yeah, I
some
don't care what the
political.
free market says.
Yeah, I don't care what free market is. I don't need political commentary to tell me what to think about. Like, it's all just out there. It's not. There's no subtlety. I don't need to read between the lines of anything.
No, and something you mentioned, like if they actually held to a platform, they would be popular. Like mass immigration is not popular amongst the American people. Constantly polled that it's not popular. However, because the elites want it, it continues.
Well, I think extreme ideas are winning ideas. I think rather than deregulating the free market, I think if you ran on a platform of containing corruption, you'd win immediately. Like, I was thinking about this. I don't know if you know who Louis Rossman is. He's
I'm
a
not
YouTube.
familiar.
He's a YouTuber who does repairs on Apple phones and Apple laptops, and he ran a repair shop in New York City for a long time. And he was a New York City fanboy, and he always swore up and down that he would never move. And 2020 was pretty bad, and 2021 was pretty bad, and he stuck it out. And then 2022 came, and he was like, all right, screw it. I'm out. I'm leaving. My dedication to this city can only last for so long, but they make my life a living nightmare, and I have to go. And so his channel slowly turned from being, iMac repair to showing the state of the city. And so he'd do these walkarounds, and he would just show all the empty buildings, just crazy amounts of empty buildings on every single block. And he was looking for a new building at a certain point, and every realtor told him, oh, you got to hop on this building. Like, it's going to go. Like, if you don't buy it, someone is going to buy it. And then 3 months later, that building would still be vacant. And 6 months later, it'd still be there. And the prices were insane. They want $20,000 a month to rent this shithole on some random corner. Well, think about it. You're an aspiring, you want to sell
person.
you want to sell hot dogs or something. You want to run a hot dog stand or shop, a hot dog restaurant. All right, well, somehow you have to sell enough hot dogs to pay $20,000 in rent. You have to pay property taxes. You have to insure the place, and you have employees to pay, and you have to fight off looters, and you have to defend your property, and the state is actively trying to screw you in every single way. And so no one is paying $20,000 for this lot. But 6 months later, the people selling the buildings, the landlords, are still selling it for $20,000. And he'll walk around and he'll just show random buildings. And these places will have been vacant since 2012 or 2011. So, we're talking 10, 11 years, 12 years of landlords missing payments on their buildings, but they've never lowered their prices in order to let someone new in there. Well, that's insane. And you think, well, how does that happen? Well, apparently how it happens is, at least in New York City, they have worked out a deal with the banks where every missed payment they make a month, they just tack on to the end of their loan. And so 6 months goes by, and they're not going to lower their price of $20,000 a month, even though no one can afford that, because they don't have to pay that. Every missed payment just gets tacked on to the end, and they've been doing that for decades. And so the real estate bubble in New York City is never allowed to pop, even though all these places are just vacant. They become homes for squatters, and they get vandalized. And then these properties are so decrepit that no one can even, you'd have to spend a fortune just remodeling these places. Well, you're telling me if you ran on a platform of, we're going to end that, you're not going to be able to do that if I'm in office. Like, we're going to change that financing glitch that they're taking advantage of. You're telling me that wouldn't win? It just seems very bizarre that no politician ever seems to get that or run on that, which gets us back to the pill of they don't want to change that. That's the inevitable conclusion you have to come to, is they don't actually want to change the status quo in any meaningful way. I mean, I've thought about this like with, farmers in the plains. They're selling their land to Chinese corporations, which, is really just a version of them selling it to the Chinese government. Well, that's insane. How about we come up with a rule? How about our party platform is, you don't do that. We're not going to let you do that. We're going to outlaw that. You're not allowed. You have to sell it to people in your state or in your tri-state area, or
to Americans.
To Americans at the very least. Right. Yeah. So it's weird. Like, the winning solutions are extreme, if you want to say that. Like, I had this thought about oil. Conservatives will always say, oh, well, we're just a few years ago, we were energy independent, and we actually had enough oil that we were exporting it to everywhere across the globe. And I thought, all right, well, let's say this. Here's our party platform. All right, if you elect us, we're going to drill for more oil. We're going to open up the Keystone Pipeline. We're going to let you drill on land, any land you want, and we're going to get oil production back. And just because it disturbs some mating process of, blue-bellied, whatever the hell, we don't care. We're drilling for oil. We need it. We want it. And then once we're energy independent, we're not going to export that oil. We're going to keep the oil, and we're going to say, look, hold on, buddy. You got to go. Sorry, my kid. Anyways, we're going to say, look, we're not going to export oil. We're going to keep oil because we want oil to be cheap and dependable and affordable for Americans. And so we could have gas down to 25, 50 cents a gallon. You're telling me that's not a winning platform to run on? That seems very bizarre to me that no one says that.
You can name policy after policy that's popular, but of course, it's not a bug, it's a feature of the system. I think realizing that it's just how things work.
I know, it's incredibly frustrating. To me, the solutions are so easy, and yet, yeah, we don't have an opposition party. We don't have anyone who's actually truly interested in running on that stuff. It's sad.
No, but we do have endless money for wars in Ukraine, Eastern Europe, Syria. That's still going on. We have money to throw away at other nations' borders, but not our own, which is indicative of the elite class's interest, ultimately, not the nation.
It is bizarre how much contempt the American government has for its own citizens. It's really disgusting, and it really does make me mad. I think of so many people are suffering in America, and it's not, we always said that America was number one, and maybe that's true. I don't know, but we were a lot more prosperous. To me, America is like a dead animal on the side of the road, and right now the government is like vultures that hover around it, and they go, well, there's still a lot of meat on the bones. Like, we can go pick on that. Like, we can, there's a lot we can take, but yet it's been going on a long time, and there's not a lot of meat on the bones, and a lot of Americans are at their breaking point. You look at, this is before COVID. Most Americans don't have $200 to cover an emergency. I mean, what the hell did those people do during the pandemic? I mean, you look at people
that
got
in debt.
Yeah, we're just completely indebted to central banking, which is a whole nother bag of hammers. But Americans really are hurting. Like, I watched this documentary of this, I don't know if it was in Appalachia or not, but it was like a bunch of really poor people. They drove 2 hours to camp out in front of this facility that was going to be offering free dental services to people. and it was just people that needed, a tooth pulled or
A filling.
a filling or something, But like that's just a bridge too far, and they were never going to get it. And you think it's just such a slap in the face to just spend hundreds of billions of dollars to people who aren't even Americans. Like, you know,
Yeah, like the Rat King himself.
I
Yeah.
know, like forget America first. I'd like to be America 32nd or America 24. I mean, we're so far down the list. We're not even on the list. It's really sad because you think America's in a real bad place, and there's a lot of people suffering. And you think, well, what about kids with cancer? I mean, we couldn't give them a little money. I mean, if we're just printing money, if money's just growing on trees and we just print endless amounts of it, we can't give some to those people? I'm like, nope, we sure can't.
Nope.
Which I don't think we should. I mean, I don't think entitlements are the solution to everything. But as long as we're printing money, I mean, hell, help somebody out.
Help actual Americans out, the dying middle class. There's a million things you could do that would be productive to actually help Americans, but the system fundamentally is against Americans. It hates Americans. It despises you.
It's very bizarre. Can it go on like this forever? I mean, can a country really go on where it hates its own people this much?
I don't think it's possible.
It's so strange. Like, this is a very weird strategy for the government to take. Like, we're just going to replace y'all with a bunch of mulatto, Chipotle bag skin colored people, and we just hope you die, I guess. All you people with guns, we're just going to keep the peace for a little bit and just hope you die. And then we'll have some other thing. Is that their strategy? It's very, I don't know, weird, bizarre.
It really is. It's so unprecedented in history. I don't think you've ever seen. Well, you have seen examples of elites letting barbarians in to overthrow a previous ruler so that they can be in power. You have seen that, but I don't think you've seen the concentrated effort of replacing your own people. And like actual contempt for them and being allowed to rule for so long in history. I just don't think you've ever seen an example of that. I can't think of any.
It's just bizarre. They really hate us with like everything in their body. They hate us. It's very strange.
Indeed it is. On a more positive note, though, a less black-pilling note.
Sure.
I think on the positive note, though, I think we just need to look to people who have it even worse than us, the South Africans, who have achieved a lot under great duress and suppression by a hostile black government. They've built their own successful communities, their own colleges, their own institutions, their own community police, their own healthcare, their own ambulances. No help from anybody. Hatred from their government. Open calls for their own genocide, even. And yet they still persist. They still go
on. Now, do you think that's possible in America? I think, like, if it was possible, do you think like the Native Americans would have done it before us? Like, they don't seem to. I mean, I know they're not the best example of it, but like they don't have that. I don't know if it's just a lack of willpower, like they don't want to do that. But I mean, would we even be allowed to build a whole parallel society like that?
Well, I just think it's going to get to a point where it's open third world where they can't actually do anything. It's going to get to the point where it's so incompetent. The narratives, their ability to coordinate between institutions doesn't exist anymore. To where it's like, it's not like they're going to actually like parallel us or parallel institutions like the South Africans, but they can't really destroy them. So
I think in order to have an actual parallel society, I don't know, I think, AA's tossed around this idea, some of like Trumpton. I don't know if you remember that video of his, but one of the rules of that was you can't have a phone. And I think that's kind of essential. You kind of have to have some sort of Butlerian jihad to get rid of the technology, because it just gives like mind viruses, like inevitably. It's so retarded. I mean, you wouldn't think, oh, well, we'll create some parallel society and we'll do okay. But that stupid phone just brings things into people's minds that are harmful to the society that's so great. It's counterintuitive. You think, well, you care about your society, you care about this thing that we've built that would insulate us from the outside. And I think if you had a phone, every teenage girl would ruin it for everybody.
I think we can all agree on that. Women in the 21st century being an absolute disaster in the Western world. You really just see the weaponization of our own people against itself with white women, just like perfectly exemplified. And I don't think you've ever really seen that before.
Well, have you seen that thing where, like, if you type in white or happy white woman into Google, it pulls up an interracial couple?
I have not seen that. I will go try that after the show.
They may have changed that, but it was a thing for a little bit. But yeah, it's very bizarre. White women have they lost the plot a long time ago.
Well, we lack strong men, is what we lack in great supply. And they're desperately needed, I think, is the problem. That emotional women have been allowed in positions of power, which is just absolutely insane. And we've seen the disaster that's had in our society and country. And you just want to see that in the same era.
I'll take this stream in a different direction here, but I'll say one good thing that feminism has done, and that'll be the one thing that this will be it. Okay. Apparently, when the country was founded, I don't know if there was explicitly age of consent laws, but from what I've read, it was around 10 years old. And in places like Delaware, it was as low as 7 years old. So there's an argument to be made that we were always ruled by pedophilic elites. But
Delaware doesn't surprise me at all.
Oh, just Delaware things. Anyways, yeah, 7 years old. And then it went up to like 12, I think. But in the late 1800s, a whole group of Puritan women fought for the age of consent to be raised for girls. They didn't like that it was so low. And through a lot of fighting and stuff, the Puritan women got the age of consent up to like 14. And then, it kind of started a whole thing where it went up from there. And now it's like, 16 and 18 and things like that. So outside of that one thing that women have done, I'm not sure if they've done anything else.
I didn't think about that, actually. That's an interesting piece of lore you just implanted upon us. Yeah, they did one thing positive. Nothing else since.
Well, if you think about age of consent, you think, if you go back through history, it's always been young, just crazy, crazy young. You think of the Prophet Muhammad, he married Aisha when she was 6. But, he restrained himself. He didn't consummate the marriage until she was 9. So he's not a total monster. But, hey, you got to go. I'm talking. Go. Sorry, my kid's bugging me. Anyways, you think about that stuff, and you think, well, when did it ever change? Why did it ever get raised? But it's really a recent invention of Christian women in the U.S., which is kind of surprising.
And just because medical things have reduced like early childhood death, and like because before in history, even up to the early 1800s, most of the children would die when they were born. Uh, and now that's pretty that's been reduced so much to where that's not necessary. So that's kind of why you saw that die out. I think that's probably why in earlier societies that was so necessary, just because so many of the children would die in childbirth or early on. So where you had to have multiple children just to kind of survive as a family, to work or to pass inheritance.
Well, what's so crazy is I don't think people had 10 kids all the time in the past. I think they had 10 kids because all of them died, or, a lot of them died. And then you have this weird period in history where babies are allowed to live through, hand washing and stuff like that. And then you do get these big, like 10-person families. But I'm not sure that was ever a thing before. I could be totally wrong, but like you have this a lot of American family trees start to become real big because I had like my grandpa, he had 8 brothers and sisters. That's insane. That would never happen now. And I'm not sure it ever happened before his parents.
Probably not beyond local aristocrats and like the upper classes of society. As far as like an understanding, like Asian and Eastern cultures, having children is a way to have past inheritance. It's like also when you get older, instead of like moving into a elder home where you're abused by a black guy, you would let your parents live with you, your grandparents, essentially. So they were kind of your future like housing too, as far as I understand it. So that could also be a reason for that.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about that the other day. Or yesterday actually. I was thinking America's going to be so weird when we're all old because we're going to be this like outdated thing that nobody really likes. I'll probably end up in some nursing home with some weird, LaQuisha, nurse who beats me almost to death on a daily basis and hates me. And, everyone in the rooms next to me is going to be gay or trans and having complications from that. And pronouns are going to be a big issue in the nursing home because no one can get it right. And no one can say each other's names because they're all, weird. And there's not going to be any Bens or Tims, or it's all going to be Kyrie and Kaylee and crazy Destiny or Mercedes spelled like crazy ways. It's going to be a weird future.
I think we definitely agree upon that. But I'm going to kind of close out the stream. It's been an excellent conversation, Witticism. Is there anything you'd like to show as we close out the stream to the audience?
I'm on YouTube, Telegram, Twitter, all at Witticism TV. I put out a show every Wednesday at noon Central Standard Time. And yeah, that's about all I got.
All right, and that being said, please check out his links. He makes really good YouTube content and puts out really good tweets on Twitter. Occasional bangers out there. But remember, everyone, a lie can't last forever, so keep your hopes up, because you have to anyway.